welcome to yet another episode of Write Once, Read Many. This time covering chapter 29.9. Oh, it's Vic. Okay. Still getting a little used to this new setup I've got, but I think it's going to end up being better than the old one. But, yes. I don't have an audience participation this time again. I'm considering, gasp, dropping the audience participation thing, since when we get to Ward, Vic will be on the show, and then the only person who answers the audience participation portion will be Greg. So Vic has also gasped in the chat. So I am thinking about dropping that portion. I guess I have a minor question here, but we don't have to wait till the end. Today's minor question is, do you think that Taylor made Cuff stay behind with Golem, not for his own protection, but to make sure she didn't get randomly killed by Scion when they weren't together? Because I kind of got that she didn't think Cuff would, make a difference in a fight, and that she wanted to give a gift to Golem by having his girlfriend not get ultra-fragged. And of course, Vic says because Taylor hates Cuff. But I think that just might be Vic who hates Cuff. Maybe hate is too strong a word here, because Vic thinks Cuff is a beta. The chapter begins with, and I should say, themes, perhaps desperation. There's sort of a thing throughout the story of, kind of working with the pieces that you've got, the very limited cape roster that you've got in a given situation, and so they're, pulling together these teams of disparate people. Vic says, honestly, I like her because she has 3 braids. It's just quirky. Nice. Thematically, I think that there's stuff going on with identity here because of that conversation with Marquis where he explains his theory of the case, and it sort of mimics Taylor's earlier ideas from previous chapters about the fact that there's specific people who always keep returning to the battlefield over and over again, stuff like that. So I think the themes of being aligned with your identity and being aligned with your cape power are the things. Anyway, I think we can move on to the chapter summary. Don't have to spend all day faffing about with themes. Oh yeah, I should switch to the final image. And I should mention on the art, I really like it. It is them when they're fairly low in the like chasm thing, and they're being lifted up. And you can just see the like massive hole of all the stuff that they dropped on Scion, but or also not only that they dropped on Scion, but I think he blasted upward when it happened to him too, so it's kind of a double whammy of destruction. So the chapter starts with Taylor talking bug talk only. There'll only be like 1 or 2 moments where she really like talks using her voice, and it will like tell us when that happens. Vic said, "Yeah, he blasts out afterward. Big Scion-shaped hole. Yeah, he's Kool-Aid Manning his way around right now. Sadly, he does not yell, 'Oh yeah,' when he bursts through things. He's a mostly silent one. So she's Taylor's giving orders, even though she's mostly dead. She's still in charge. She wants Cuff to like secure the platform they're on, and then once they do it, they're gonna rise straight up and out using the Siberians' invincibility to make the platform invulnerable and hold their weight while Alexandria moves them up and out. So Golem asks if they should go back for the other people inside, and Taylor's like, "Nah, we don't have time for that. We gotta go talk to Tattletale." And I like that the Golem says, "Sveta, well, Shadowstalker," and then he's like, ... prisoners? And then she factors in they've got the Doormaker, the Clairvoyant, and Numberman, and they've just got to get all this info back and figure out how to deal with this. And they'll send in like squads of people who can't fight Scion to come in and capture Sveta and save Weld and stuff. Which is a good idea. There's lots and lots of capes who could effectively deal with like on the ground, even like really strong cape threats, who would be like worthless against Scion. Boop boop boop. So yeah. This is when Taylor sort of looks up and out, and she's, examining the place. And then, they realize that there's sort of ash in the air, and it's the Numberman sort of corrects Golem's assumption that it's soot, and he's like, well, it's kind of like burnt up human flesh from the big flesh blob thing that we just left. And then Imp's like, joking around and takes a deep breath and says everything's fine. And Lung is, Lung being Lung is like questioning the fact that she's joking now. But much like we'll see in the Marquis section later, clearly her being in line with her essential personality is important in this moment. Vic says, "Look, most dust is flesh." That's true. And that's why we try to not breathe in huge amounts of dust. They, Imp is like saying that they hit him hard, and she's happy about that. And then Imp starts examining Taylor and how she's all like fucked up and weird, and she's like, why don't you fly away since you can fly about? And Taylor's like, it doesn't matter, a limited fuel. And then Imp is clearly still afraid of heights and is like basically concerned that the platform they're on is gonna break. And then there's a fun moment. Rachel says, "Don't be a wuss." Everybody's like, "Look, dog, this thing's being held up by like the Siberian power, so it's not exactly gonna fold by having an extra person's weight on it." And then Aisha's basically like, "Fine, I'll just stop thinking about heights." And she starts sort of like, in a friendly, fun way, making fun of Taylor a bit, saying how she seems like a real powers creep. And she said, "I almost think you bit it, and your ghost lives on in the swarm." She waggled her fingers as she drew out the last word. "I'm alive," I said. I made myself raise my head. Yeah, it's classic stuff. And even when she says "I'm alive," it's still like, it's still italicized, like she's bug speaking only. And then, Aisha goes on to say how old Skitter, the creep, was cool. She even says, what is it? Where did she say? Creep factor 1,000 or something like that? Yeah, that's from the previous one. Anyway, then, Taylor's searching the area with her bugs. She finds out that, basically the only thing that we get from the bug search is that Sveta is alive, because Sveta kills off some of the bugs in some area. So that's fun. We're all smiling because our favorite blob of tentacles persists. And then they can finally hear Tattletale again once they're almost out of the facility. And then Golem is talking to Tattletale. She's asking why why Taylor's not talking to her, and Golem's like, she's fine, but also she can only use bugs to talk. The way he describes her injuries, Weaver's a little unsteady on her feet, which I find a hilarious way to describe how like fucked up and crazy her wounds are. I guess for Taylor it's normal. But you know what? This must have given the other defending forces some relief, because the whole time Scion was here, like, slowly floating down the hallway, looking at a vial, and then bursting them one by one or whatever for a bit. He was not, blasting through dozens of defending people. Vic says, "Missing arm equals unsteady on feet." Yeah. She's a little off balance, some would say. And then they can't download the video, so they do have to go directly to them to bring them a camera up. But Tattletale's able to direct them to where a portal is available. And since they've been like slowly raising up the complex, they're nearly at the top, and they're like basically on level with where the portal is. They all hop off their like makeshift platform, and then they essentially go through the portal. There's a funny moment where I heard a yelp and turned back, but I couldn't identify the source. Sveta, another prisoner? And it's like, clearly it was Aisha getting legitimately freaked out by like a 2-inch gap from where she's got to cross over, and she's afraid of heights and stuff. And then she like hides from them afterward that she was the one to scream. So very funny. or Yelp rather. And then they have sort of transferred Cuff's earbuds so that Alexandria can directly, well, Pretender Alexandria can directly communicate with Tattletale and update on the situation. And Taylor's really distracted by both being in hostile territory still, and then also, being in horrendous pain. Typical Taylor stuff, actually. So they find Shadowstalker right around the portal. She says that she had covered their rear for a bit when they were running away, but it's, Taylor doesn't know if she fully buys this as the truth or not, but it's kind of like I don't know. How much does it even matter if Shadowstalker's telling the truth? She does say that Satyr died, which, spoilies, we will learn that was not the last Satyr. Satyr probably had a safe Satyr that wasn't in here the whole time, and he told his friends, like, yeah, this is the last me. Oh, we're all gonna go down with the ship together. And fucking Florette and Blowout got fucking ultra murked by Scion, and Satyr's just like, I guess all my friends are dead. I don't know. Satyr fucking sucks. I hate Satyr. I'm not gonna, pretend I don't think Satyr's the fucking worst. I do. He's, down there with Teacher for me. Oh, Alien's here and says, seems like a lot of people have died. Yeah. According to Tattletale several chapters, about half of everyone. I like Teacher as an antagonist that I like to hate, much as the same way that I like Jack as an antagonist that I hate. But Alien, I'm glad that you fucking love Teacher on a more legitimate level. Anyway. Let's see here. Now that they're reunited with Shadowstalker, they go back through the portal and they talk to Nyx and Spur again, who are the ones that Golem had trapped to the wall and ceiling respectively, I believe. No, sorry. Nyx is at the ceiling. Spur is on the wall, I think. Because it says the wall for Nyx here, but she specifically was handed up two hands that were grabbing her, so if she somehow broke them, she'd fall to the ground and get hurt. Taylor's not fucking around. She's like, tell us where the two heroes you hid are, and then Nyx and Spur are trying to do a negotiation, and Taylor's like, I don't have time for anything. And then, she baseline tries to negotiate with information about Satyr, but when they push back, Taylor just leaves essentially. And then, Golem's a little worried that they're Alien Cat Daddy says about Teacher, he can teach me anytime. Good to know. I'll have to keep an eye. If we have a secret organization, Alien will definitely be the mole. He'll be super obvious too. Man. He'll be all zonked out on Teacher power. So Golem is worried about Revel, who's it's fair. Revel is their actual team lead, and it I guess be the equivalent of one of the wards from the start of the story being worried about Arms Master or Miss Militia, because they're the direct boss, and there's a lot of camaraderie. I don't feel like there's a lot of these Parahumans teams where they hate the person, like the cape in charge of them. We've never really had a situation that we've seen like that, I don't think. Oh, Vic says, Alien has been hanging out with Teacher too much. Like Saint. I just think he's neat. Yeah. Saint's like, I don't need his power. I just think, like, he's really reasonable. And, like, he doesn't even have to convince me of anything. I just kind of do what he wants without him having to ask. Our goals are fully aligned. I'm not changing my goals. Oh, Saint. But yeah. So Golem is like worried about them, and Taylor kind of cuts the Gordian knot of like how to deal with this situation. Golem's gonna stay behind, and she leaves Cuff with him as well. Which, as I was saying to Vic at the beginning of this recording, I think might have something to do with like. I mean, maybe I'm overreading into it, but it feels as though she did that to me to leave Golem with Cuff so that she wouldn't get, like, killed off on a battlefield when he's not around. And also, legitimately, in most situations, what is Cuff going to do against Scion? Yeah. I guess, I don't know. I don't think that she could put up defenses that would matter, and I don't think she could hit in a way that would matter. Maybe she could do some, like, combo attack, like when they made that attack against Behemoth, and they had to, like, make a crazy chain that she created between the dogs. I don't know. Alien says she tends to leave people a lot if they're not going to be helpful to her mission. Yeah, and that's fair. Like, in reality, they are much, much safer in the cave than they are coming with the rest of the group back to, like, one of the main battlefields. Scion is so, like, incredibly unlikely to show up to this cave where there's 6 parahumans compared to any other thing he could be doing. So, you know, when you can go anywhere between all the different multiverse worlds... boop, 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 boop. Let's see here. So, yeah, he stays, she bothers to, I think she's like looking him in the eye, and she can see his eyes through his helmet. A lot of people you just can't see their eyes at all, but golems are open, such that Taylor can have these kinds of moments with him. And I think Golem actually makes a lot of sense as the person to search for them, because if there's going to be a false wall, he can like feel around and be like, well, the actual rock only extends to such and such over here, so they're clearly behind like a hidden panel kind of thing. She describes Blowout's power, and she's like, look, I didn't tell you about it before because we didn't have time for that shit. There's no time for revenge, she says to him. And then she admits he's not the type to go for revenge. You know, it's helpful to have a subordinate like Golem who's just gonna kind of do the right thing. But yeah, she this is the moment where she uses her voice for the first time, where she, in excruciating pain, lifts her only remaining hand, sets it on his shoulder, and says, "Thank you for caring about Revel. Makes me feel less guilty about leaving." And, you know, she just strains it. Vic says, the secondary effects of Golem's power low-key slap. Yeah, when we see him fight in Arc 26, after, like, for us, there's been these big time gaps, and like, he's set up this whole system where he can, like swipe his hand over panels of different materials and then feel, as he touches each one, like the surrounding area and creates a mental map. Like, he has so many of the best parts of Taylor's, like, mindset in terms of, like, she's shown him how to do so much with his power. He's, like, her main pupil. Actually, now that I think about it, it's kind of like a Metal Gear Solid 3 thing, where, like, Taylor's the boss, and Golem is Jack, and like Naked Snake. Wow, I'm kind of blowing my own mind thinking about this. Yeah, that's awesome. Metal Gear Solid 3 is the best one. Alien says, hee hee, maybe not her mindset, but definitely learned from how versatile her ability usage is. Yeah. I mean, she hasn't, like, totally converted the way he thinks to the way she thinks or anything. It's just, like, most capes, even with really good, really versatile powers, are not, like, that creative with them. They don't, like, make the most of their powers, and Taylor's constantly thinking, like, if only I had that power, I would do something devious with it. I would put bugs up their nose. Vic says, Taylor's a boss and Golem is naked? I'm into this fanfic. Yeah. Vista and Perion come to mind. Would have excellent secondary powers. Yeah. Oh. Hopefully sneezing away from the microphone made that not too bad. Like, we'll see instances of Vista's power, like, I mean, we got to see earlier in the book where, like, when there were so few people and only capes in Earthbet, then she turned, like, the landscape into a weird zigzagged out, like, area, because, like, when she doesn't have the restrictions of having to, like, deal with people, then she can just go, like, crazy with her power. And, like, she can make movement corridors and make stuff so that, like, if she's in a situation where she knows people have, like, guns pointed at her, she'll make the air around her such that, like, the bullet will always stray and miss her, kind of thing. Like a zone where she's not shoot-at-able. So that's pretty fucking cool. Vic also said, Vista is strong as is, but could be way more creative. Yeah. I kind of feel like that plays out in Ward, that we do see the, like, more creative side of Vista's power. Alien says, that is, every time he sees someone with powers more lethal than hers, she gets super Oh, yeah. That's true. Every time that Taylor sees someone with a sort of a deadlier power, she's like, damn, I wish I had that power. She's like, controlling bugs is the least powerful power of all. Defeats everyone. Boop. So yes, leaving Cuff behind with Golem, she gets everyone else to board. They don't mention it, but they still have, like, 5 remaining Harbingers and the, like, I'm about to call them corpses. They're not dead. They're just long-term knocked out. The corpse pile of, like, Gully and other Case 53s are just being ferried around by these, like, 5 teenage boys. It's bonkers. And then they dump everybody onto the Dragon ship. Since Dragon is awake again, Taylor doesn't need to drive. But, like, you know, she still sets herself down in the chair. It's probably better to be in the driver's seat than anywhere else. Yeah, she's, like, trying to catch herself up on the battle by looking through, like, video feeds that are being sent to them. and get herself back up to speed. And she doesn't want to like have to deal with talking to people for now, so that's part of why she's like focusing on this other stuff. Alien says, I would have liked to see more crab usage, though. Underutilized. I agree. The crabs, the krill, there are several, like, things where, like, or even, like, the fact that we know she can move worms about, and we never see worms get used in the book Worm. That's a little sad. Vic says, same! Yeah, we all want more crabs. Oh, jellyfish attacks, that would rule. And jellyfish are weird, because, like, well, I'm thinking of colonial jellyfish specifically, but, like, the colonial jellyfish, I think she could control them. Perhaps. But they individually have very little thinking power, but when they link up, they kind of, in the same way that cells work to make our bodies, where the cell is an individual organism, like, kind of, it also... like each cell of the each jellyfish is its own thing, but they can link up and become a colony, and then it kind of all works as one working unit brain, but it can still break apart and live as the individual parts. Colonial jellyfish are wild. I'm probably not fully accurately describing them, but I just think when I have learned about them, I've been super, super into it. Alien says, I know, right? I would have loved for her to cover herself in worms. They also have no brains like crabs, I think. If only Taylor had a teammate with water powers. Yeah, if Ligeia had been alive longer, they could like dump water onto a battlefield and then like she'd swim all the jellyfishes at people, and yeah. I can imagine it now. They're like, you thought it was bad when I put bugs up your nose? A jellyfish is going right in there. Boop, 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 boop. So, we get some background info on some other stuff going on, like the Sleeper has taken over Earth Zayan. The Sleeper is not elaborated upon as far as powers, but he is considered to be too difficult to deal with, and they've got to just leave that behind. Like they just can't deal with that when Scion's on the table. It would probably be good for them if Scion fought the Sleeper, but they have no way of compelling the Sleeper to fight Scion, so Vic says, and her name would be Princess Jellyfish. Perfect. Yes. Oh no. I just thought of it. The glasses, dark curled out hair. She is Princess Jellyfish. Alien says, does he do anything in Ward, like relevant at all? Kind of. I would say yes. Kind of. But, what little screen time the Sleeper does have only happens at the very, very tail end of Ward, so it's not gonna come up for a long, long time. Let's see here. When they do talk about dealing with the Sleeper in Ward, at a certain point, the guy who's, like, proposing the mission to other people, he's, like, walking down a hallway, like, trying to collect people to come help him, and he's like, okay, we need someone who can stand up to an absolute annihilation power, and who's, like, a super fast mover. And then everyone's like, well, we're not exactly going to be able to help you out with that, bud. It's kind of funny because, like, the guy in that scene collecting people to like go deal with the situation is like clearly not expecting anyone to be able to like fit his criteria, and he's asking for like the strongest combined set of powers. It's just ridiculous. I love Ward. It's so fun. Like, I don't know. Wildbow got a lot better at writing in the intervening years between Worm and Ward, so. Yes, she's checking through things. She says that the CUI has taken over another settlement, and that's, yet one more thing to deal with, but she can't focus on that now because of Scion. They've kind of got 3 major outposts for the Capes she's aligned with. There's let's see, they've got Western Europe and North Africa minus the English speakers in one location. The Guild, the Suits, the Maesters, and a bunch of teams she can't identify. And then Khonsu and Leviathan and a bunch of Cauldron Capes. And so she sees these locations. And, like, if you think about the CUI area and the Earth Zayan area, like, that kind of makes the 5 armies that I guess Zayan 1 isn't really an army. Maybe if you have, like, teachers people as the 5th army? I guess all I'm saying is I do think it kind of comes together to Dinah's prophecy at this point. Like, they've divided up. They have these major outposts of, like, tons and tons of capes that are... Each one of the groups is sitting with at least one thing that would block out Dinah's future vision from fully seeing everything, like an Endbringer or other things like that. Taylor has to speak up and use her real voice to talk to the Dragonfly for a second, and it, like, hurts to even say the couple words. Oh, Alien says, one day, I've been skipping around web serials. Yeah, and I mean, like, obviously, Alien, we're, like, at the tail end of this, and we will be continuing into Ward. So, like, if you wanted to, like, read it with us slowly, you could do that. If you wanted to read the things so that you had, like, you could listen along or whatever. However you feel like, but we will be covering Ward, and we're not going to skip around to, we're not going to do, like, Pact in the middle or anything like that. I kind of want this to focus on parahumans, and if I did Pact and Twig, I wouldn't get to Ward for years and years, and I'd be sad. You know. I like that when she looks in at a battlefield where Scion shows up, where Leviathan is, it says, a cape flung Leviathan. And I choose to believe that they're just, like, some super strength cape, since Leviathan is not fighting back, is able to, like, just pick up Leviathan. I want to believe it's, like, a one-hander, and then just, like, like, baseball pitch Leviathan at Scion. And then, Alien says, after Ward? After we did Ward, which will take us several years to complete, if we're doing 1 chapter a week, because, like, the only reason we even completed Worm as fast as we did is because for the first long while we were doing 2 chapters, but I don't think we can do 2 chapters in Ward. I think we just have to do 1 a week. I haven't, like, actually looked at the word count, but my assumption is that Ward starts out at about the length of the chapters where we decided we could no longer manage 2. Yeah, the chapters are... So, the chapters are longer, yes, but it's like... Worm is super variable in that the chapters start around 2,000 words. This is like me remembering an infographic from a couple years ago, so if I get the exact numbers wrong, whatever. it starts around 2,000 words a chapter, as I recall, and then the end of the book, the average chapter length is like basically around 8,000 words. So they like just slowly increase over the course of the book, and that's also where you see there's a point at which the arcs kind of reset to having fewer chapters within Worm, and then Ward is, I think, more stable in terms of the word counts per chapter, but I think it's starting. I think it starts more in the like 4,000 to 6,000 range words. So they're like, in terms of like audiobook, I think most of the chapters are around like 45 minutes. Some of the early Worm chapters are like less than 15-minute chapters, and on the audiobook, it's like wild. And for example, this one was kind of a medium length chapter, and it was a 45-minute in the audiobook. But Alien says, interesting. I would say maybe try so APGTE, which I think is I don't remember what the P is, but it's something guide to evil. A practical guide to evil. Okay, yeah. That makes sense. Practical. I should have been able to remember that. No, I've heard that that's really good, and Greg's been trying to get me to read that for like a couple years, but like, I don't know. I have such a hard time starting a new web serial. I've read the first like 5.5 arcs of Pale. I think I'd be more likely to finish Pale and then read A Practical Guide to Evil after Pale. I know that I've only read a couple arcs of Pact, so I could theoretically read that before Pale, but to me, Pale is just so much more compelling. I know Pale's extra long. I'm not gonna pretend like I don't know that. They kept lying to me, Wildbow. Like, it wasn't even Wildbow, I don't think. It was like the community around it, but like, during the entire first half of Ward, people kept being like, yeah, and Ward's a short one. They're just gonna do a short one, so like this one will cut off sooner. And it's like, no, Ward is longer than Worm, even though it's fewer chapters. And then for Pale, they kept being like, yeah, Pale, the short one. This is just gonna be a few arcs. And then it just goes on and on and on. Alien says, interesting, because I like Pact a lot more than I like Pale. Okay, so admittedly, I'm only on like arc 2 or 3 in my Pact read, and I tried like 2 or 3 different times to read Pact, but like I only kind of like the main character, and then like the alternate version of the main character who lives in the mirror. But like in Pale, I like love all 3 main characters. Vic says, the chapters are so long. And then Alien says, our little homeless boy just shines through, about the Pact protagonist. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that there are many good parts of Pact, but I just kind of, like, the atmosphere of Pact was so, like, overly oppressive, where it's like, every person he interacts with is like, we hate you and want to kill you, and like every single fucking person, and they're like, we're gonna play a trick on you, like, I'm gonna do this thing to make a bunch of time pass so that it's like dark outside, so that you get like fucked over by spirits, and I didn't technically harm you myself, so I didn't break my word. Like, I don't know. Oh, Alien says, they're in interesting conversation with each other. Vic says, I kind of like oppressive. Maybe my thing. Well, yeah, it might be. It's just like he can never get his feet under him. Like, it all feels like that part of the Slaughterhouse-9 stuff with Taylor, where like it feels like they're not making any progress about the against the enemies, and like people are just getting like fucked up left and right, and Gru gets captured. Like, it all kind of feels like that tension to me. Alien says, Blake is just way more fucked from the beginning than the Pale cast. They all get their basic magic textbooks early on. Yeah, and admittedly, there's like a point kind of early on where the pale protagonists are starting to interact with like a magic school, and I wasn't as into that part. Um, but I really like the core protagonists of Pale a lot. Um, Alien says, and Blake can barely read. Oh, he's like Dan Santa from Santa University. Looks like shit and can't read. His only two character traits. Um. Okay. Back to the story for a second. I'm gonna focus on the summary for Mo, even if new texts come in, and then I'll go back to the chat when I see more stuff. But I kind of think that Leviathan is like incredible. He's awesome. He totally goes hard in this fight. Like once he gets thrown at Scion, he is like using his nanothorn fin things, and that he can like stop momentum, which actually reminds me of Rain's power in Ward, like his fucking mover power, where his only power is to stop momentum. Um, Rain's such an idiot. I love Rain. But yeah, like Leviathan stops in midair so that he can create a water echo forward, and then touching through his afterimage, because he can super speed through water, he like super speed changes direction through the water, and then like uses the nanothorn fins to like blast through Scion's body and just like presumably tear up all the like surface level stuff. Of course, we know that they're doing very little overall damage to him because, like, you know, we've seen the Garden of Flesh that was the Eden entity, and presumably Scion's got a similarly ridiculous well to draw upon. But yeah, despite how awesome Leviathan is and how he is like just this crazy ball of death, Scion still like throws him away, and then he just like blasts all these other people, and whenever he has a spare second from Leviathan, he's just blasting every other cape in the vicinity. This fight rules. I don't want to get caught up too much in the details because our main people aren't there, but they're doing all sorts of stuff. They're like using Konsu's time pillars to block shots and stuff, and then they're like, you know, unfortunately still getting blasted by Scion. They have like, they've built up some kind of power that's, it seems like they like an alternate but a similar thing to like what the CUI does to make the Yangban, and somebody is like transmitting out powers, so everyone's doing like shields and stuff, and but it's still not working. You know, this is Scion we're talking about. And then it takes Scion like, it says 2 minutes, maybe 3 or 4. I'm just gonna assume it's the full 4. I'm gonna give him the credit. And Scion's just fighting and fighting, destroying everybody. And as short as 4 minutes might sound, it's also like wild that they held him off for 4 minutes. And you know, they're looking over, like a bunch of capes are you know, blasted, still alive, but like heavily, severely wounded. There are a bunch of dragon ships that are blown up, but they're like auto rebuilding themselves to try and get back into the fight. And then it shows Scion's face, and this is the first time his face has ever been different than his expression that he had the whole time since he showed up. His eyebrows were drawn together, lips just a little tighter together, lines standing out in his throat. He hadn't changed his expression once in the time we'd known him. So I think that's pretty meaningful. I think they really fucked with his head in that the deep pit that Taylor was in at the Eden entity. Oh, Vic says he's trying to smile. This is fun. Definitely, he doesn't know how to smile yet, but he's like, I'm having a good day. So at first he can't blast through this Konsu's time effect, but after he throws a blast and it doesn't work, then he like clearly attunes his power differently and is able to shoot through the sort of time bubble wall that Konsu had been holding up, and then all the people on the other side of it who had been hiding behind it just get fragged. And then Konsu teleports away with all the defending forces, and then like apparently Dragoncraft were finally, like from other battlefields, were joining the fray. But in that moment, since Konsu left, Scion also leaves. And he appears on another like area where it says, catching our side off guard, tearing into us with a fresh kind of violence, not experimentally, but out of some form of impotent rage. But yeah, they're just teleporting battlefield to battlefield. Imp is like, yeah, he's really is pretty angry. And then Taylor thinks yes, and Numberman says yes. They're on the same page. They're both cold-blooded killers. And then Imp is asking, like, why, if he's so angry, is he still not destroying the continents and stuff? Because we know he can. And then Numberman's like, I don't know. We don't have a solid way to figure that out. And he's like, I don't like guesses. Well, we'll have Tattletale do the guessing. And then, we don't even get told exactly what's happening in the new battlefield, but it's similar to the previous battlefield where he's just like, taking people out left and right, constantly blasting. Taylor's really internalizing that this might be the first time that he's felt like true grief or anger, and so he's like figuring out how to deal with it and vent anger. Taylor's still like trying to focus and stuff, but she's like so injured that she can't like focus on stuff very well. And she's like keeps reminding herself she just has to make it to Panacea to get like the pain relief she needs. And then Numberman is talking to Rachel. And there's this funny moment. Can't remember. Was it bitch or hellhound? Bitch. Bitch. Colorful. It's surprising the things you can survive if you know the mechanics of movement, of physics, and the structure of the human body. You hear about people surviving falls from 17,000 feet up in the air. And then, it's funny. Like, first, bitch thinks maybe he's threatening her, but he's like, no, I'm actually afraid in the same vein as Imp. And she's worried, or he's worried that Taylor has passed out. Although, to be honest, how much would it matter if Taylor passed out in the pilot's seat? Dragon's flying the ship. Taylor's not flying. Alien says, without the Endbringers consistently killing the strongest parahumans, do you think they could have taken him? I think that without the Endbringers, the human side would be stronger in terms of their parahumans by a lot. But they would be losing the Endbringers. I'm just going to assume that if the Endbringers aren't there to fight them, the Endbringers also aren't there to fight Scion. I don't know if it comes out to a net 0. That's a really good like question to consider. I know that, like, for example, like right off the bat in the first behemoth fight, one of the first people to get fried was like a medical tinker. So, like, yeah, I think they'd have like way more resources on their side. I'm gonna go with yes. I'm gonna go with, even losing the power of the Endbringers, they would be on better footing if they hadn't been fighting them for so long. Yeah. Good question. Vic says, Numberman just guesses with more math. Sorry that TT has intuition. No, I think the Endbringers caused more triggers. Not directly, but like downstream. You're right. I didn't think about that. That's another thing to consider. I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to say because they did lose like a lot of really good capes to Endbringers. Like, even just ones we know about, like Strider. Losing Strider was a big blow to like the general hero forces. Alien says, I'm thinking of how early they mentioned they've lost so many teleporters, and that would have been hella helpful. Yeah. Like, that's a part of it too. But it's hard to know how many capes there are, like Cuff, who probably wouldn't have powers if her parents didn't die to an Endbringer attack. She didn't, like, get her powers from the Endbringer attack, but it's clear based on the fact that only about 20% of potential parahumans have powers even now, then, like, I think less of them would have powers if they hadn't been in these worse situations, so... Vic says, I think if the Endbringers were like 70% less deadly and psycho, I think it might go better. Seamerg causes too many problems. Yeah, that's the other thing is, like, even if we just, like, tabled the Seamerg, I think that the heroes would be considerably better off. 'Cause, like... Then again, like, the Seamerg kind of pushes Taylor to do what she does and win. So if you see it through a certain lens, like, maybe... But then again, they probably wouldn't have needed Taylor to do what she ends up doing. I don't know. This is a lot to think about. That was a good question. Vic's also saying, but having dealt with Endbringers before kind of prepped the infrastructure for the Scion battles. True! This is a pretty multi-threaded question in terms of, like, the actual answering of it. Definitely something to think about. I think what I'm going to do is use that as an audience participation question. I'm stealing your thoughts, Alien. 29.x. Oh, wait. And then, we're gonna... Can we copy text off a message in the chat? No? Weird. Okay, let's try that. And then... Nice. Alright. I don't know. It has like a weird highlighting system, but it did let me copy paste it. Yeah, that's all the things you guys are saying are good points, and I still don't think we've fully drilled down into it, but so Rachel goes and sits at the front with Taylor. She says it's not because of what Numberman said, it's just to keep her company. And then Taylor's happy about this. It's nice to have some camaraderie in these dark times. And then there's a page break, and then they set down at the makeshift hospital that Bonesaw and Panacea are at. And then there, Tohu and Bohu are fighting. Taylor hadn't realized it, but without even like passing out, she was just so like dazed by sitting there and being in pain that she wasn't tracking anything for a few minutes. Proving once again that she did not need to drive the vehicle. Heavy losses from attacks ongoing. There were more people running for their lives than there were people fighting. And then Taylor says the fight's almost over. Lung's annoyed because he's like, I just said that. Rachel helps Taylor stand up without even needing to be asked. And then Taylor thinks he's going to attack the settlement they're at now. And she keeps getting like thrown off balance by little things, like the fact that Alexandria is talking, but it's really Pretender, so she sounds, she, whatever, sounds super different than the Alexandria classic that she had dealt with. And then, they're talking about possible things that he'll, that Scion will do to, like, restart his cycle or change it up or whatever. And then Taylor's realizing that the Earth Gimel, like, they hadn't left that long ago, but it's already, like, super changed. There's a bunch of Nilbog minions to fight Scion, and then, like, the buildings have been, like, reinforced using powers, and there are, like, groups of capes all ready for, like, Scion to teleport in, like, at any moment. They've moved away all the remaining, like, dead and wounded. And then, Panacea greets them, and then they, they meet up with the entire group around Panacea, like Marquis Bonesaw, and then several of his followers, what's his name? The, like, butler guy. And, like, Cinderhands is here, too. Spruce, that's his name. Spruce. And then, when asked who's the priority, to heal, then Imp says Skitter first, but Skitter says Doormaker. People are annoyed with Taylor, and she's like, basically like, you gotta heal everyone else first, and then me last. And at first it seems like typical, like, Taylor being like, I can deal with it. Sort of that weird, like, selfless, self-sacrificing kind of thing. And then, we realize by the end of the chapter, she really just wanted to get healed after everyone else had left the room. And so, Taylor does get, like, the first round of healing, in terms of, like, getting pain relief. So when Panacea touches her, she, like, melts. And she feels great, in comparison. Actually, with how good Panacea is, she might feel no pain, so this might be, like, the best Taylor's been feeling in ages. Some stuff. Alien says, but I think there would probably be more international parahumans conflict without the Endbringers forcing them to work together all the time. That's true. In the alternate history, they kind of have formed into these power blocks. The Wardens versus the... I'm trying to remember if it was the Shepherds in that flashback. But yeah, they have, like, these groups that form these major power blocks. And then Alien says, makes sense, she says Doormaker first. Yeah, Doormaker is obviously... Doormaker and the Clairvoyant are the two most important to heal, because once they get them back in the fight, like, more so than anyone else in their group, like, they are so pivotal to how everybody can operate. Panacea compliments Taylor's pain tolerance, and then she sort of elaborates on what we were mostly supposed to pick up on up to this point, but it's kind of just made canon, that the Bakuda bomb went off, and it, like, kind of reset her pain tolerance to be, like, non-standard. And then, moving on. There's a moment here where Taylor looks at Amy's face up close, and she's like, a young woman now. Not attractive, but not unattractive. What Taylor's really saying is, like, I mean, she's not that hot, but, like, I'd make out with her or whatever. Definitely Taylor's affect. She's like, kind of, she says she's envious in her mind of Amy. And she's like, she found herself. And it's like, she has a role in this. And it's like, I don't know if going to jail and being sad with your dad is a good way to find yourself. And I don't know how much more she actually found herself than you did, or how much more of a role she has in this than you do. But, like, Taylor's always trying to downplay her own significance. Vic gave the classic, oh no, she's hot. She has not found herself, lol. Yeah, Amy has not found herself. Alien says, I forget if she has a second trigger in the locker from the Bakuda bomb or the Bonesaw incident. It's in the locker. A lot of people think it's in the Bakuda bomb scene, but it's not. She has 2 trigger events right away. Because her power never has a... I think a lot of people think it's in the Bakuda scene because in the next section, when she's still injured, she can hear through her bugs, which she never does at a different time before that. But I think that's just because of how, like, disconnected from her normal way of thinking she was when she had the initial concussion. Vic says, she's just a healer. Makes it easy. Easy to find yourself. So yeah, Taylor starts resupplying her constant bug army. Obviously, she's got to. Tattletale shows up because she's just outside. Tattletale enters. Panacea says, you weren't invited, Tattletale. Such a petty... Amy's such a... Oh my god. But Tattletale goes, business. Someone, camera me. And then Tattletale gets to work looking at the camera footage. And she calls Numberman Harbinger 0, which is awesome. Numberman says, you couldn't call me Harbinger 10? Or even Numberman? So rude. Let's see here. Alien says, would she have had a second vision? Yes, she would have had a second trigger vision in Arc 4. And I know that there could be the argument that, like, oh, Wildbow hadn't really thought of that yet. He wasn't sure. But it does just solidify in my mind that that's not when it happened, because no one else gets knocked out. It doesn't disrupt Bakuda. Or at least no one mentions that it does. We don't see the vision. And like every other time a trigger event happens, even to someone else, we see the vision. So Vic says, yeah, because they have a vision when Gru has second trigger. Yes, they totally do. After being asked if she can call him Harbinger 10 or Numberman, then she calls him H0. And you know what? She totally roasts him in the way that Vic kind of did earlier, because he says there very little that's concrete. This is all very much guesswork. And then she says, then let's talk hypotheses. Educated guesses. And then Taylor chimes in that Scion's upset. And I believe she's talking with her voice at this point, because she can talk without pain now. And then Tattletale's like, his buddy died, I gather. And Imp goes, yeah, and we threw bits of his dead buddy at him to distract him before dropping a skyscraper on him. But I don't know how much that did. Classic, like, Imp line. But I also find it funny that it's his buddy, because it just makes me think of Matt Berry in Garth Marenghi's Dark Place going, you and he were buddies, weren't you? You know, this is not ideal, but I think I need to, yeah, Vic says. And they were roommates, yeah. History will know them as roommates. I am going to quickly replay the song and the speed draw. I need to step away to use the restroom, but I will be right back. Alright. I'm happy that I have gotten back in time to have the music still playing. I'm just going to let it finish out its work while I keep talking though. Okay, so Vic said, look at me wasting so much time drawing perfect circles than not using them. I think it helped the tunnel effect though. Yeah, no, I think the tunnel looks great. Pretty funny that Alien says, pretty funny that Cauldron is so veiled and mysterious with how they make power throughout the whole story. And the truth is just, is they're just juicing the dead corpse of, juicing the Eden corpse in their back room. And then Vic says, I know, right? They're not even smart, just lucky. Still playing. Yeah. Cool. Well, bloop. We'll go with, switching over to the final drawing. Okay, sorry about that brief moment. And then, okay, so relaying all this information, Tattletale asks them if they accomplished their goal, and then they got information. they can't use formulas, but they could use Contessa to force second triggers. And then Tattletale is like, oh, she wasn't there? And then Taylor's like, she's with Konsu, right? And then the number man's like, nah, she died. And she seemingly was killed by the attackers when Mantellum's power canceled out hers. Shadowstalker then helpfully adds, you failed. Alien says, very brief, no need to rush, my guy. Vic says, is that true that Contessa can force second triggers? Sounds fake. I think she can. She can't see past the trigger event. But I think that she could. It's something I'd have to think about. Oh, Alien says, I don't think so. Huh. Alright, well, I'll have to think on it. Maybe we'll talk about it in another episode. But I'm with Taylor on this, but it sounds like the audience does not believe Contessa's power could do a second trigger event. Imp calls Numberman a downer because he corrects that they're unlikely to have had another power slip through like Mantellum, because Mantellum specifically got through by having an anti-perception power, and anti-perception power isn't exactly going to help them against Scion. But yeah, Panacea moves over, and she's like healing the Doormaker now, and then Taylor corrects that they did learn something important, that Scion can be wrong when he uses his like future sight power, because he didn't look for the outcome he needed. He looked for an outcome where he would find his partner, and he like in the most like monkey's paw sense did find his partner. And so Imp's like, we gotta trick him into a future where he's trying to eradicate all of humanity. Alien says, I've disliked Numberman since his first intro. I'm the main digit hater. Imp is just a bandwagon jumper on this digit hate. You're the true hater. And then Tattletale corrects that he's not really trying to kill off humanity. The one thing that he actually wants to do, Scion, is find a species life cycle partner to like burst forth and have another cycle go where they send off entities in all directions to become the next iteration of the warrior thinker pairs. And then Taylor asks, can we give him one? And then Tattletale's like, kind of hard to pull off. And like, I agree. It would be hard to create a Scion entity out of like first principles or whatever. Like, create one from the ground up. Alien says, number one hater. Kind of sounds like he was blue ball. I suppose he was. And yeah, Taylor's like, can we like give him a fake version of what he wants to like trick him? And then Tattletale is like, that would upset him even more. And then you know, there's some background. Bonesaw's doing surgery on Doormaker. Imp's like, upsetting him is good. That's what we're trying for. And then Taylor's like, yes, we can emotionally damage him. We can't use emotion-based powers, but through normal means, we can hurt his feelings. And then one of Marquis's dudes is like, you want to irritate the world-destroying alien god? And they're like, hell yeah, brother. And then she's like, we want him to be so emotional he fucks up and makes a mistake. And then Lung's like, yeah, but you're supposed to like capitalize on the mistake by hurting him, and there's no way to hurt him. And this is when Marquis is like, tea, anyone? And they all just start having a tea party in this hospital setting. It's lovely. Green, he asked me. The others drink green. Black, with milk. He's just like working the kettle. You gotta love Marquis. And then they basically Taylor says they don't have enough time to like wait until they have an idea of what to do next after the upsetting. They need to do that now because like she doesn't say this, but it's like she's got to build the staircase because she's already running up it, so she's got to quickly. If you've seen The Wrong Trousers, she's got to do the grommet where you're laying down tracks for the train you're on as you're going, so that they're perfectly lining up and the train keeps going. So, and I think it's I think it's funny that Marquis keeps chiming in while he's working on the tea. And then this is when Marquis starts talking about... He goes back to something Taylor was talking about at the beginning of the arc when she was talking to Legend. And he says, who do you see on the front lines? Which heroes and villains are still fighting? Which ones keep returning to the battlefield before any of the others have even found their feet? And then she says, the monsters. The ones that are a little crazy. The ones that are a lot crazy. And then Marquis, it doesn't say he frowns, but he seems to sad frown here. Not quite the answer I would have given, Marquis said. Which answer would you have given? I asked. I would say it's the people who are most in touch with who they truly are. Same thing, I responded. Alien says, do they look weird after Bonesaw surgery, or was that just a gimmick when she was with the Nine? I mean, I think that they would have, like, a sloppy, like, closure on, like, the surgery site, but she's not the one closing up the surgery. She goes in, does the surgery, and then, Amy puts the surface level back together and, like, knits up all the stuff. So, I think Doormaker comes out like a standard Doormaker. And then Marquis corrects that he would have said, it's the people who are most in touch with who they truly are. And then Taylor's like, same thing. We're all fucked up. We're all damaged. A little crazy. A little monstrous. She's like, I'm actually pretty edgy. It is funny that she'll, like, talk like an edgy teenager a lot of the time, but then you have to remind yourself, like, she actually has done all these awful things. Like, as I've always returned to, putting bugs up Clockblocker's nose. How dare she? He frowned a little. People here might take offense to that, myself included. No offense intended. And then, yeah, I'm just going to read his whole section here. I think this stuff's pretty important. There's a strength in knowing who you are. I would suggest that everyone play to that knowledge. Reflection, after all, is the province of the old. It's in your final days that you sum up your experiences, weigh the good against the bad, think back to the pivotal moments, and decide if you've made your mark. Others go through this sooner. the terminally ill, those that expect to die. I don't get it, Rachel said. Are you happy with who you are? He asked. Sure. In a general sense, do you know what you're doing in the next few hours and days? Yeah. Is there something in common between those two things? Kind of? That's what I'm talking about. I don't get it. I like this back and forth. He's trying to explain something that he can't quite put into like a good, succinct way, and then even though you can get his point from reading this, like someone like Rachel's gonna be like, I don't know. Bunch of words to me, she says. But yes, now in the distance, things rumble. They realize that Scion is here. He's here. It's unending. The same thing over and over again. Destruction. An enemy we can't truly beat. Always just a little worse than the last time. Which is how they used to think of the Endbringers, also. And then people start exiting to go to the battlefield. A whole bunch of them do. And then Bonesaw says about Doormaker, hey, Amelia, gift wrap this one for me. And then Panacea, fixes up Doormaker's brain. And then he, starts being like, because, he can't really do normal stuff. Bonesaw's like, oh, fuck, I fucked up his brain. And then Taylor's like, no, just attach him to the clairvoyant. And then they do. I do find it funny, too, that the Lung grabs the clairvoyant, gets the power for a second to see everything, and then it just whoa! Throws him off. And then Taylor uses his bugs to connect them by a spider silk cord, and then brings them together. And as soon as the Doormaker and the clairvoyant are touching, then they start making a bazillion doors and helping on the battlefield, etc. Let's see here. Alien says, not her fault. Clockblocker didn't pay attention to her MO when it comes to the bugs up the nose thing. Should have had his helmet on. Yup. The cape they'd never heard of. He didn't pay attention to that MO. Vic says, it's funny that Bonesaw immediately assumes she did it. That is funny. Alien says, have we gotten the escalation line? That's probably my favorite in the whole book. And Vic says, sometimes evil things just come out of her. Yeah. I'm not sure which escalation line. We have gotten many of the previous escalation lines, but I would assume whichever one that you're talking about, I'm going to go with no, we haven't gotten it yet, but I don't know what specific line you're referring to. Let's see here. So Taylor asks if she can go, but then Shadowstalker bails when she says that. Panacea stops for a moment. She says, you can, but let me thicken the skin so your stump doesn't pop like a water balloon. Taylor's like, let's. I think that's so funny. And then this is when Taylor gets serious with Panacea. She's like, I asked to be last for a reason. You know what your dad was saying? I kind of wish he finished. I feel like I was on the brink of coming to a conclusion. The fights are getting worse. Doormaker makes them a portal, and everyone moves through into this totally separate cave. So, they're not just in a building right next to a Scion fight. And then Taylor's saying how, she doesn't feel like she's adding enough. She doesn't feel like she's in the right place. Which also reminds me of, this thing that Clockblocker thinks in his chapter, way back in Arc 9, where he's, talking about how when he's, trying to fight crime on the streets, he feels like he should be with his dad. When he's with his dad, he feels like he should be trying to help the city. But then when he's in like an actual cape fight against the Travelers, that is essentially a meaningless fight, but it is a superpowers fight, he's like, kick ass. This is the only time when I feel like I'm in the right place, right time, is when I'm in one of these powers fights. Alien says, more like Shadow LARPer. Definitely Shadow LARPer. Yeah, Taylor's going on about how she and Long, they're both badasses and they should be doing more than what they're doing now. And then it's funny because Bonesaw's like, oh, and I like when Long says, I have a job. I will protect these girls. And he's just talking about like Bonesaw and Panacea. But then, yeah, Bonesaw tells Taylor she's projecting, and then Lung's like, no, she's right. I am better than this. And then, they're, like, troops are moving around, Taylor's sensing things with her bugs, whatever, there's a lot of stuff. But she's, like, telling them in the moment, that she's almost found her way to like be useful, and that she's like Long and she still thinks she's better than this. And what Marquis said really struck a chord with her. And then Panacea tells her to think back to when she was strongest, and she imagines basically arc 11 through 14, and she's like, well, kind of 11 through 20, but 22 maybe. But she specifically is thinking of the time between like the post-Leviathan fight, after the team had gotten back together, up to the point when she became Weaver. That's when she was strongest. And then Panacea's like, that's when you were the most you. And then Amy's telling Taylor how she like came to like accept the worst parts of herself, kind of, and that she's secure in who she is right now in the moment, being a medic for the side. Taylor thinks back to being in Glenn's office and looking at the security camera footage of herself and seeing herself as like unrecognizable from when she was attacking the PRT and fighting Tag. I'm just a little bit of a monster, I thought. I can't put the blame on my passenger. And then she starts hearing the Seamerg scream, which you always know is what you hear right before you make a good decision. And then she asks Panacea basically if she can help unlock her power, and then it's like Taylor, Amy, and Bonesaw as the only three people in the conversation, and like Tattletale, Lung, whoever, they're across the room, but it's like these three girls whispering to each other at this point. Vic's like, Lamau, the scream. And then Amy's like, I can't like open your brain up because I won't be able to fix it if I do it. And then Taylor's like, you gotta knock the walls down in my brain like a second trigger event. You gotta unregulate what's been regulated. And then Bonesaw's like, if it was that easy, I'd have done it with the Slaughterhouse 9. And then Taylor's like, it's not gonna be easy. And then Bonesaw's like, all right, fine, I'll try, but we should maybe tell Tattletale first. And then Taylor's like, don't tell Tattletale. She'd try and stop me. She says, Tattletale would stop me. I said, she'd ... in her head see it as something self-destructive, suicidal. And Bonesaw's other warning is, you're gonna lose your mind. Maybe a little, maybe a lot, maybe all at once, maybe in pieces. Depends on how it all reconnects in the end. And then, she says, no, keep her in the dark. For the time being, let her focus on what she's doing. Bonesaw okays it, and then says she's going to find out really fast. And then Bonesaw, who had been healing Canary, is like, no, I'll do it. And then Bonesaw's like, you can't work on brains. And then Amy's like, I can. I just choose not to. And then she also says Tattletale won't figure out as quickly if it's through Panacea's power rather than Bonesaw like doing open brain surgery. And then then she's saying like this is worse than a second trigger event. It's just going to be like such a crude thing to give her these powers. And then it says the Seamerg's screaming continued. Dinah left me 2 notes. The Seamerg had reminded me of the second. I'm sorry. It wasn't an apology for the consequences of the first note. No, Dinah hadn't approached me since. She hadn't decided I'd fulfilled the terms and deemed it okay to finally contact me again. 2 words, telling me that something ugly was going to happen, directed at me. There was a chance that it meant I'd lose something, or someone, or I'd lose something precious. Maybe it referred to my friends. Maybe it referred to my mission, my direction. My dad, perhaps, which might have already happened. But there was a possibility that it referred to me, that it was tied to our ability to come out ahead at the end of all this, to some slim chance. Maybe there was a sacrifice involved. I shook my head, unable to articulate any of the arguments to come up with something profound to say. I only said, do it. In the end, she becomes Sheev Palpatine, and her final words are, do it. Incredible stuff. Panacea laid her hand across my forehead, and it all went wrong. End of freaking chapter 29.9 in the books. And that's the last Taylor chapter of this arc. Vic says, use some common sense, Taylor. Glad the Seamerg was actually trying to win. Amy touches Taylor's forehead and immediately is in love with Amy? Girl, not again. I was already going to joke in a minute. I had thought of this earlier. I was like, Amy, at the end, she's like, I might be able to fix it, but I'll only be able to do it if we touch lips. Vic says, beginning of the chapter was a bit weak, but I think this ending is perf. I guess the beginning's weak. It's a bit of they've released some tension and they're just trying to stabilize footing before this final scene, I think. I don't know. I guess the beginning's weak, but I wouldn't have said it if you didn't. For arc stuff, incredible ending to an arc. I know there's still the interlude, but like this is like the cliffhanger of the cliffhangers in this book for Taylor. Like, I know there are many other cliffhangers, but this is the greatest one. Alien says, I don't know about that. The entire thing builds to the end. The end isn't nearly as good without the setup. Yeah, that's kind of how I was feeling, yeah. But, so... Yeah, in this arc, I just think 29 is in contention to me to be the best arc. There's 3 arcs that are up there. It's 22, 29, and 30. And I think they're just all like so incredibly good. I love how many characters are drawn in through 29. I love all the connections, how like the ideas are bouncing off between characters who, you know, earlier in the book really haven't gotten like the chance to have scenes together. Um uh Vic says, "Look, I just like to complain sometimes." Alien says top three arcs for them are 17, 25, and 30. Yeah, all good ones. The Kraus arc, the time skip arc, and the final arc. Um, yeah, yeah. I'm, I'm thinking maybe before the very end of the Worm set of streams, I'll try and I think I'm gonna try to do a stack rank of how I feel about all the different arcs. Cause yeah, be interesting to go through. Alien says, "Oh, maybe 24 then. 24 is the Behemoth arc. If you're saying you like the Kraus arc, the Behemoth arc, and the final arc, then that makes sense too. Um, I I think yeah, 24, 25, all very strong. Like yeah. Alien says, "What's the school arc?" 20. That's arc 20. You thought 25 was the school arc. That's so far. Vic had said 21. 21 is the wrap up arc between the school arc and the jail arc. Okay. So, Alien, your one of your top three is 20 when she's confronted by Defiant and Dragon at the school. Yeah. Yep, it's pretty good. I think it has a good ending. For me, 22 fills a similar role, but I just kind of like I think it hits better for me. And it's almost the perfect length that I would like as a singular arc. I could listen to 22 without any of the other context of the rest of the book, you know, having already read the story several times. So sometimes, like when I used to do warehouse work, I would just listen to arc 22 without the rest of the book and just be like, yeah. Um, Alien says 20 and 30 are inverse companions. Huh, yeah. Do I have any other arc stuff to say about 29.9? No, just that everything had like a really incredible build. We got to see so many cool fights and things. This arc's insane. It rules. Venom for the win. And then I guess the emotions that they forced Scion to feel are like the venom in his veins. They have managed to get his ass. For characters, there's loads of them. We get the confirmation Svet is alive, but we don't talk to her. We don't get confirmation that Weld's alive, but spoilies, he is. He may just be a little pile of metal right now, but he will reforge himself into a big man. Shadowstalker, we re-meet up with. She gets to try and make fun of Taylor and go, "You failed." But then she also gets the hell out of there when she's like, when Taylor's like, "Can I go?" Because she's like, "Oh, shit, I'm not even injured, and I was not going to fight. Now I look like a wuss." The worst possible thing. We get some Golem parts at the start, and, Cuff doesn't say much, but Golem and Cuff are sort of the hearts. They're heart of the group type people. I kind of think Imp fits a similar role. They're like the most moral three of their group. Um, and then of course, we get some good Rachel time where like Rachel is comforting Taylor and helping her without even being asked. Aisha gets tons to do. She's not only involved in like the idea bouncing that gets Taylor to where she needs to go, but she like gets some funny moments because like she has quips. She gets to like clown on some people. But there's also a funny moment for us, the audience, where she is like scared of heights, and so it's like funny that she uses her power to cover up for the fact that she like eeps in fear. Um, Lots of good Aisha stuff here. Um, there's a bunch of background characters who are like knocked out or don't talk, like all the Harbingers and like Canary and Gully and all these fucking people. Um, we briefly see like Nyx and Spur. It's alluded to the fact that Golem's gonna save Revel and Exalt. You know what? It's probably too bad that they knocked out Exalt, because he probably lost his like wind buildup, so he won't have enough time to build up wind and use it again before the fucking fight's over. Because it takes him so long. Oh, it would suck to have a power like Exalt's. God damn. But who else we got in the character bin? We see lots of people for a little bit. Yeah, like Spruce, Cinderhands, some unnamed Marquis minion. There's that great moment where Marquis makes goddamn tea, and he's like, "Yes, let's all have tea and crumpets at the end of the world." It's incredible that Marquis isn't British. He even uses the British pronunciation of Marquis. He's British as hell. We've still got Alexandria Pretender throwing Taylor off balance. Alien said, "Is he British?" No, he's from like the East Coast. Oh, you say you always read him as like French? Yeah, no. It's specifically not Marquis, and it is Marquis, like the British pronunciation, and it's also I believe Chevalier and not Chevalier. So it's Chevalier and Marquis, not Chevalier and Marquis. So they're all British as fuck, even though they're American. And who else we got? Lung, he's got some great moments. He's getting annoyed with Taylor. He's like, "Keep up with the conversation, idiot. I already said the thing that you said." Vic says, "And me, aluminium." Even correcting to say it the dumb way, though. Oh, yeah. Aluminium. Tattletale gets her brief appearance. She both gets to speak to Golem and people on the comms, and also gets to be directly in the situation. You can tell that Tattletale's kind of over stuff too. Like, I know that she's not always like, she's not the type of person to like be gentle with a laptop, I guess. Like, I'm not saying that she's like super studious about stuff, but the fact that she just sort of like tosses her laptop down, like, she feels like she's over it. And that she's kind of keeping up a brave face for Taylor. It's all for Taylor in the end. But yeah, who else? I've covered most of the infiltration group. I guess the remaining people are really like Amy and Bonesaw. And it's like, it makes sense to me that Taylor was able to convince Amy to like help her, but it is like, it is clearly like Amy's reticence is not coming from nowhere. She's like, ooh, I don't know if I can do this right. And then she kind of does, kind of doesn't. Alien says, damn, I like him a lot less than he's British now. Yeah. Um, yeah, I imagine he's got an American accent. Um, but he's British-ish. Because, like, a normal person, I think, would call themselves Marquis. Anyway. So... Yeah, like we see the kind of final personality of Bonesaw, as far as her worm persona goes. And, I don't know. I think that Bonesaw's a fun character like this. Like, kind of fed up, real talk Bonesaw. And then what else? I guess we can I'll spend an extra second on Amy. Like, I just think that this is her, like, another pivot point of, like, her unlocking Taylor's power is as impactful on her mental state as having fucked up Victoria in the end of Arc 14, start of Arc 15 time period. So it's like, I think that this is her third major pivotal moment, because she also had when she first met Bonesaw. So this is a classic Wildbow 3-beat of you do one beat in Arc 11, one beat at the end of Arc 14, and then one beat at the end of Arc 29. Alien says she'd probably do better on brains if she wasn't thinking with her dick. God damn it. Yeah. Probably. I do also... Like, I'm not over the stupid joke I thought of earlier where it's just like, yeah, Taylor, I'll do the change on you, but I can only change you lip to lip. Yeah, Amy's a weirdo for many things, surely, but she is mostly a horned up teen. That's her core trait. I guess her other core trait is like shame. Typical shamey. And then finally, last and certainly not least, Taylor in the character section. We love Taylor. Love to see it. She's being like peak Taylor, as pointed out by Aisha. What does it say? Yeah, creep factor 1,000. I think that's a classic quote to describe Taylor. And I mean, we have that line from the previous chapter that's like one of my favorite lines in the entire book when she says, let's read it. She says, whatever, right now at least, my body was an inconvenient puppet, a vehicle for my power and my brain, nothing else. Yeah. We're back to hardcore Taylor, and I love it. And then she makes the sort of most, I don't think her decision is short-sighted. I almost said short-sighted decision, but she makes a decision many others would not make, and it has the exact consequences that she's told it will have. And for that, we got to tip our cap to Taylor. Always pushing the limits. I don't know. I feel like I did say most of what I would want to say about Taylor throughout the chapter, but I just think that, yeah, she's just peak Taylor here. She's like, I know we lost some members and we had to fight really hard, and some people are dead. But on the other hand, we got some information, and that's good enough. We really won that fight against Scion, I'd say. And she's the first one to like fully comprehend and talk about the fact that they should capitalize on Scion's negative emotions. Anyway, I think I can move on from the characters section. Love all the characters. There's loads of them. Arc 29 is packed to the gills. Powers, knowledge, and world building. We did learn some stuff. We basically talked about most of it. Like the relationship between like who keeps running into the fight and the way Taylor views them, the way Marquis views them. Like we don't know yet what will happen from Taylor's ill-fated plan with Amy messing with her brain, but we see that she's finally going full Amy on another person after 2 years. And then, again, that, like, fight we see between Leviathan and Scion, however briefly lived, is, like, so peak. Like, the fact that he's, like, able to stop himself in midair to like make the water echo appear and then like use the water echo that's the size of his body to like then swim through that water in midair to change his direction. Leviathan's fucking epic, bro. Alien says, and doesn't get better in Ward, I assume. Sorry, you'll have to elaborate on that one. Sometimes it doesn't quite hit with, like, I'll say too much before I look back over. Anyway, I'll sort of keep talking about stuff for a second while that's sort of clarified. But, yeah, there's, like, we don't see that many fight moments. There's only like 2 or 3, but they're like with Leviathan and Konsu, and they're like cool as shit. And like we can kind of imagine a lot of stuff where like there's these different fights where Scion keeps fighting against a whole group of random ass capes at the same time that like an Endbringer is going like truly hardcore all out. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of think, I feel like I don't have that much more to say about Powers, knowledge, and world building. A lot of it is extrapolations on things we've already seen, pulling together ideas that have already been stated, and like finally coming up with this idea that they need to push Scion's emotions more because that's about all they can affect. And and they've got Doormaker back online, which is of course like incredibly important for their side. I actually can't think of that much more to say for this section. I think I'm gonna go ahead, move it on along. I didn't have an audience participation question ready. And I don't want to use that same audience participation question that Alien Cat Daddy had come up with. I think I'm going to use it on a further chapter, like one of the ones in Arc 30 specifically. For 29.x, For 29.x, oh, I'm so silly. I've been talking about the, flash forwards they see to the alternate universe as though those had already happened. That's in the next chapter. You know what? The 29.x is going to be 29.x's question is going to be, oh wait, why isn't this working? Which cape, I think it's being weird, which cape from the story would you most want to see the alternate timeline version of? Boom. Alright, so we'll put that in the Discord, and I will start the outro song, I think. Not much more to say. And here I was thinking I wasn't going to keep doing audience participation. Okay, final stuff. How do I get to that dang... Oh, here it is. Good. So, this music is, once again, Extinction by our friend ScarlettXOX. You can find her work at twitch.tv/Scarlett_Rogue. Our Discord server link, as well as the other links, can be found in the stream description, as well as the channel description. Vic says, bye! The author of the work being discussed can be supported on Patreon at patreon.com/Wildbow. And the full text of the work is available for free online at parahumans.wordpress.com. There's also a full fan-made audiobook for 2 different groups. One of them is at audioworm.rain-online.org, and the other one is at abaddonproductions.org. Let the rest of the song play out. I feel really excited as we get to the end of the book. I'm just like, I'm itching to start reading through Ward on the stream. I'm like really excited to see the ending, all sorts of stuff. But I want to try and blast through this remaining section, and it's kind of, sometimes I'm like blown away by how far in we are, like how long we've been doing this, how far we've gotten. Like, I've seen so many people start to review Worm and get to like either one of the early arcs or stop around arc 10 or 11 or like whatever, but they almost always fizzle out, and I was just like, if I'm gonna do this, I want to do it for real and follow it through to the end. And it's been my intention from the beginning to eventually move on to the world, so yeah. I will see you all, the very few of you, next stream. Thank you.